Well, good afternoon, everyone. The H1B Guy here, and today, the H1B Guy Live, December 14th, 2022. Today, I'm going to discuss the Eagle Act vote today in the House with bipartisan support and opposition, as well as taking your questions and comments. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't already, to please subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube and like this video so that I can continue to produce more content like this for you. I also wanted to mention the H1B Guy offers a variety of consulting services. I help businesses and individuals solve complex work authorization issues in the recruitment process while bringing awareness to employment-based immigration benefits. If I can help you, please reach out. I'd love to hear how. And you can book an appointment directly with me via the h1bguy.com. Today's live stream is brought to you by Syndesis and Path to Canada, the ideal plan B for high-skilled immigrants currently located in the U.S. whose status may be uncertain, by PERM-Ads.com, the industry leader in providing a seamless experience for employers and immigration attorneys navigating the complex PERM recruitment ad phase of the labor certification process, and by Mob Squad. Are you a technology professional facing U.S. work visa-related challenges? Don't leave your fate up to chance. Our partner, Mob Squad, has a solution. Join the squad. Well, it's a little after 2 p.m. Eastern here in the U.S., and news broke yesterday, approximately a little after 1 p.m. From Majority Leader Hoyer's office, which stated that members are advised that recorded votes requested on H.R. 3648, known as the Eagle Act of 2022, will be postponed until later in the week. The reason given for that is that Congress was going to want to be witness to the signature of another bill that was previously passed and put into the president's desk for signature last week for equal rights for same-sex marriage. So it was protections surrounding that. A pretty significant piece of legislation here in the U.S. So news started to break again a little bit after lunch here on the East Coast. That the vote would be postponed. If we go back to last Wednesday during the stream, during my live stream, which was on December 7th, 2022, I talked about the possibility of a vote even being held that evening. But unfortunately, the vote didn't happen. News started to break on Thursday that there would not be a vote on the Eagle Act last week. And so it became evident on Monday as kind of part of the House's itinerary over the last 4 days of session, right? So tomorrow is the last day of the 117th Congress, which is at least scheduled based on the calendar, right? And that could change as soon as today or tomorrow. But ultimately, news broke there wasn't going to be a vote. Then we found out there was going to be a vote that was going to be held on December the 13th, and now pushed back. According to this update, which was yesterday, it says later in the week. And then clarification came around the Eagle Act and when the vote would possibly be held, which was scheduled for today. And so the floor schedule update that was put out by the Majority Leader Representative Hoyer's office updated to say that that the next predicted votes would be approximately between 12:45 and 15 p.m. on the rule motion to recommit passage of H.R. 3648, Eagle Act of 2022. I've not seen the vote yet. I've been following on the live.house.gov, and it looks like they're currently agreeing to resolutions on another House resolution, H.R. 1518. But I'm not sure if any of you have seen anything out there, but would love to hear from you in terms of what you're hearing. As of yesterday, I've been kind of indecisive. I felt like there was enough bipartisan support. If we go back to, H.R. 1044 and when it was originally passed, we look at nearly 83 co-sponsors on, this House resolution, H.R. 3648. And I felt like there was enough bipartisan support to possibly pass the Eagle Act in this what's called lame duck session, right? Um, but when news started to come down last week, we started to see some opposition to it across sort of party lines. This bipartisan opposition, progressive Democrats opposing it, as well as really more conservative Republicans with significant amount of moderate GOPers really seeming to support this HR 3648. And so you saw big tech really come out last week talking about the Eagle Act. I mean, on record, you had Amazon, Intel, Google, I believe Facebook even put something out, Meta, if you want to call them that. So there's been a lot of big tech support behind that, which has allowed some of the very conservative GOPers, if you will, to speak out against it. Um, you know, really the for American, buy American. But the thing about the Eagle Act is that it has a significant amount of H1B reforms included as part of the legislation. And so I think that the dissemination that's come out and a lot of the opposition that's come out, it's been interesting to see a variety of these voting blocs who typically don't partner or from a bipartisan perspective vote um, in a similar manner kind of come together on this very polarizing piece of legislation. And so I think when I really start to look at it, there's been a lot of misinformation that's been reported. Some folks that have covered immigration for a significant period of time. Some folks who are newer to being on the beat in DC covering immigration who've almost turned heel as it relates to their support, their reporting, excuse me. Um, so we've seen a lot of misinformation. We've seen a lot of groups really speak out. And so what was being reported over the last couple of days is this term called whipping. And some of you may not be familiar with what that term means. And so I'm going to do my best non-political science way of describing it. Basically, you have assistant leaders across both the House and the Senate in the various parties, right? The Republican and the Democratic Party, who are responsible for making sure that votes go with the party, across party, right? With the party. And so what you see now is that's been going on where you've had some moderates and some folks that maybe have been on the fence, if you will, in terms of their support of the Eagle Act. But at the end of the day, this is something where, as I said last week, if a vote isn't held, it would be really a significant blow to immigration reform advocacy as a whole. I said that on the H1B Guy News on December 9th. And a couple of things just to kind of go back to that post. Ultimately, we've got right now roughly a day and a half remaining for the Eagle Act to come to a vote. And then what happens when it comes to a vote? Well, then does it move to the Senate? Does it have a possibility of finding, bipartisan support there, or is, unanimous consent as we looked at from S386, the Fairness for High Skilled Immigrants Act? Are those all possibilities? And there really is a lot of moving parts here. And, unfortunately, when we look at immigration reform as a whole, the debate yesterday was very interesting. I'm sure many of you, kept up with that debate and probably have gone back and watched the videos from the debate as a whole. But, I think we have to realize that this is a zero sum game. And when you look at a backlog of 1.4, 1.5 million individuals, regardless of country of birth, right? Primarily, those are Indian and Chinese nationals, but um, the discrimination as it relates to country of origin is something when we look at 2022 going into 2023 and in our ideology surrounding equality. um, Ultimately the root cause has to be addressed, and a lot of the opposition surrounding the Eagle Act does talk about the fact that it does not increase the amount of green cards, and I think that was one of the biggest pushbacks on the Fairness for High Skilled Immigrants Act. But what it does do is creates really a 10-year timeline to clear the current backlog in a first come first served basis. And ultimately, we have to look at a merit based approach here if we are going to continue to be the innovative and technological advanced country who is the leader in the world, globally speaking. You're seeing a lot of other nations now, countries, who are becoming just as an attractive destination to the best and brightest. And ultimately, that's something where the US has been the number one destination country, but we look at what's going on in Canada, we look at what's going on in Australia, the UK, United Arab Emirates, um, Germany, even. There's a lot of other countries now that are providing more flexible and direct paths for high skilled immigrants. And that's created really this breaking point that we're at in terms of immigration reform as a whole. And I think the problem when we look at employment based immigration is that it's typically lumped into family based and illegal undocumented immigration. And it's two completely separate entities, if you will, two completely separate issues. Employment based immigration is legal, high skilled immigration based on shortages of talent, demand, and talent supply, labor shortages, if you will. And I would even go as far as go with the farm agri piece, right? Your H2s that I don't really cover a whole lot here, but those are employment based visas, right? Work authorizations based on employment that provides individuals an opportunity to come to the U.S. legally. And I think that for me, that's the breaking point. For those of you who have followed and kept up with this platform for any amount of time, you know that my background is in IT staffing and technical recruiting. And through that background, I gained expert subject matter knowledge in work authorization, specifically the H1B visa, but not limited to that. I've worked with TNs, with E3s, with E2s, with O1s. So I've had an opportunity to kind of work across the spectrum of the variety of work authorizations that are out there and become knowledgeable in this gap meaning in technology staffing. Employers demand on talent still outweighs the supply. It still does. And anyone who wants to argue with you about the layoffs that are occurring, I will tell you that I heard a stat earlier today that talked about there's been roughly 13,000 layoffs in big tech, but green tech, green tech's already hired roughly 6,000 of those. So almost half of the individuals laid off in big tech have now been hired in green tech. So the cheese is moving, right? And that comes back to innovation and technological advancement. And where we've been on the cutting edge and where we continue to miss the mark is by scrutinizing and restricting high skilled immigration, where we allow the US educated then to have a very short window of time for pathways to extended work authorization. Yes, the H1B visa is temporary, but it is a dual intent visa. So individuals that come to the US on an H1B visa or individuals that are in the US and gain an H1B visa, their intent is ultimately permanent residency. 9 out of 10 times. It isn't always the case, right? It's not 100%, But I will tell you 9 out of 10 times. And so ultimately, this gap that's been created, the 7% limit on employment based visas for country of origin, is the root cause. And it has to be talked about. And we have to look at what is the reform that we can come up with that will set us down the path to solving the green card backlog. And that's where I come back to the Eagle Act. Not only does it include a 10-year time frame to eliminate the green card backlog, there are also protections for American workers for H1B reform that are significant. It is. It is. And anyone that's saying otherwise is unfortunately putting out misinformation. So would like to ask you, if you haven't already, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube, and click the bell for notifications so that you're notified anytime we post new content here to this channel. If you're looking for ways you can support the H1B Guy platform, you can do so currently through the super chat function here on YouTube, or if you're watching or listening to this at a later date, you can do so through the super thanks. For those of you who are currently joining me, I really appreciate your time and support here this afternoon as we, really look to know when the Eagle Act is going to be coming up for a vote. It looks like they're still on HR 1518. This could go as far as tonight. But ultimately, the biggest thing that I would tell you is that even if this passes the House, it doesn't look like anything will happen in the Senate, and that's unfortunate. But if the support is there, hopefully we can see what that would mean for this legislation in the future, or some sort of similar legislation in the future. But we'll continue to monitor this. Just want to say thanks to everyone who took time to join me here this afternoon. Really appreciate it. It's a little after 2 p.m. Eastern here on the East Coast. As I discussed earlier, the Eagle Act will be up for vote today in the House. Does that mean that it will come to a vote in the Senate before they end? Ultimately, I don't believe that there's time there, but who knows? Who knows? But I will tell you, when we go back and look at some of the folks that spoke out yesterday on the Eagle Act, when we look at, of course, Representative Lofgren, you had really some that came out in terms of Representative Jayapal, who we've already known. Then we've had, really the antis, if you will. Representative Roy. You had Representative McClintock, who we've covered here before. But yesterday was, I thought, in my mind, as I listened to some of the context of the debate, it was really kind of ho-hum. There wasn't a whole lot new being offered, and then there was definitely some misinformed representatives that spoke yesterday. But if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post those in the chat. Would love to know what you guys are hearing. If you've heard there is a possibility that we could see HR 3648 pass today in the House. Again, there's a pretty long docket of voting today. We knew voting was going to begin around 12:45, and it appears that voting is underway. As I said, voting on HR 1518 already has occurred, and hopefully we will, before 7:15 or so tonight, have a better idea of ultimately what the fate of the Eagle Act is. But I think in totality, I'll be honest with you, I didn't feel like we get to a vote the fact that we're at a vote this late in Congress is definitely something of interest to me, even though, uh, again, it's considered a lame duck session. But who would benefit from the Eagle Act most? Of course, those stuck in the green card backlog, primarily Indian and Chinese nationals, as there is, really an opportunity to over 10 years to clear that backlog. American workers would, because there are um, H1B reforms that are included in that. One of which, for me, empowering the DOL uh, to do more audits is of concern. Um, I think that that's a piece where we look at, is that good or bad, and that ultimately is what I would call compromise on the piece of legislation that we had. Um, but of course, it's December 14th, and really I didn't have any intentions on talking about the visa bulletin today, but um, I'm hearing that it sounds like the bulletin is going to post tomorrow. I honestly thought we'd see it today, which there would have been a fair amount of irony and almost um, kind of a, a gut punch, if you will, to those immigrants in the green card backlog if the bulletin dropped today on the day that the Eagle Act was to be voted on in the House. But from what I'm hearing, it sounds like it will be tomorrow. Of course, you're back on December 1st. I put out the H1B Guy forecast for January 2022 Visa Bulletin employment-based predictions, where if any of you have watched that video already, spoiler, you'll know I didn't predict a lot of forward movement. One of the things that I am hearing is the possibility of some corrective action could be occurring in EB3 for row for all chargeability. I've also heard the possibility of there being a final action date and a date of filing established for EB1, which we haven't seen that now. If we go back, I believe it was April of 2021. A lot of this having to do with there being 200,000 available employment-based green cards for fiscal year 2023. And then looking at the overall number, demand, and documentarily qualified, sort of that number use, right? Um, what are you guys hearing though? Just curious for any of you who are out there who may be watching right now. Uh, what have you heard about the possibility of the Eagle Act passing? Are you hearing the same thing that I've been hearing? Thoughts on the visa bulletin posting tomorrow? Do you foresee any changes that possibly could be occurring? If we go back to last year for January's bulletin, it was one of those where we did see some movement in EB2. We didn't see any movement in EB3. No really movement in EB4, and honestly EB1 remaining current. So it was a bulletin where we saw very minimal movement. Ironically, it was India EB2 which moved the most for the month, going back and looking at January 2022. But I will go on a very large limb here and say I don't expect any movement for India EB2 for final action or for dates of filing for India or China. We just haven't seen any movement there over the last couple months. In fact, retrogression in India EB2 two months of this fiscal year already. I'm keep getting a lot of questions about EB3 individually. And so one of the things I wanted to talk about there, really quickly, I think we're probably gonna have a pause this month, but we've been seeing kind of that 30 to 45 day uh, forward movement, days forward, every other month roughly for EB3. So I think we'll continue to see that trend. And another thing that I did want to mention, I talked about briefly during the H1B Guy news, the reporting on USCIS's fiscal year 2022 progress report, where they put out a totality of, out of the 281,000 available employment-based green cards, they used 275,111. As long as I've been tracking the Visa Bulletin and keeping track of employment-based green cards being issued annually, this is the most that I've seen. I think it is a historically high number. And the thing that I think is most interesting when we look at, some of the year over year increases, it was almost 80,000 more total employment-based green cards that were used in fiscal year 2022 versus fiscal year 2021, when we still were being impacted by these massive processing delays that were being experienced with the USCIS, really due to COVID and due to human capital. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to drop those in the chat. I have a couple of more minutes here today. Would like to spend some time maybe answering your questions or comments that you have around the EAGLE Act, around the opposition, the support of the EAGLE Act, the vote, thoughts around the Visa Bulletin. I know we talk about that multiple times every month. Of course, about a month ago, I did a live stream where I talked about briefly the H1B lottery for fiscal year 2024, of course, sitting at December 15th. No better time now than to start to begin to think about the H1B lottery for fiscal year 2024 and looking ahead, trying to, if you're looking for sponsorship, making sure that you have an employer potentially identified by mid to late January, so that you have the month of February to get everything in order for your registration. I will absolutely be posting more content surrounding the H1B the H1B lottery for fiscal year 2024 over the next couple of months. I have a very exciting guest that's going to be joining me on February 1st. And I will be putting out more information on that in the next several weeks, but really looking forward to having this individual on. I think you all will too. So more on that. We're going to talk about the H1B lottery, and we're going to talk about kind of the current state of employment-based immigration. A lot of exciting things that'll be coming up in that conversation on February 1st. I will also, once the Visa Bulletin comes out, which I'm expecting tomorrow, you should be on the lookout for the H1B Guy grades, which will probably post out either Friday or Saturday. And next week, not sure if I'll be doing a live stream next Wednesday, but possibly. We'll be doing a live stream, and then after the Christmas holiday, we'll be putting out 7 predictions for immigration in 2023, employment-based immigration in 2023, and also try to do a look back of my 7 predictions from last year for 7 predictions for 2022. And just to see how I did with those. I think I've got a couple right, and that's about it. Predictions are never easy to get right. So with that being said, since I don't see any questions or comments, I'm going to go ahead and close out today's live stream. I want to thank all of you who took time to join me here today. Really appreciate your ongoing and continued support. Today's live stream was brought to you by Syndesis and Path to Canada, the ideal plan B for high-skilled immigrants currently in the U.S. whose status may be uncertain. If you're facing an H-1B denial or OPT expiration, don't get caught off guard. Make sure you have a plan B, and Syndesis and Path to Canada are your answers. They'll gladly help you navigate the process. And if you'd like to find out if you qualify, please be sure to use the link in the video description below, and someone from Syndesis or Path to Canada will be in touch. And by PERM-Ads.com, the industry leader in providing a seamless experience for employers and immigration attorneys navigating the complex PERM recruitment ad phase of the labor certification process. If you're looking to reduce your costs and overhead associated with PERM labor certification recruitment advertising, let PERM-Ads.com help you. And by Mob Squad, are you a technology professional facing U.S. work visa-related challenges? Don't leave your fate up to chance. Our partner Mob Squad has the solution. Mob Squad helps technology professionals facing U.S. work visa-related uncertainty remain working with their current U.S. company, nearshore from Canada, as well as technology professionals from around the world who are seeking an opportunity to find a rewarding career in North America. Through their partnership with the Canadian government, they can obtain a Canadian work permit for you and your spouse in as little as 6 to 8 weeks. So whether you're looking to stay working with your current U.S. company or you want to find a new opportunity in Canada, please find out how the team at Mob Squad can help you via the link in the video description below. Join the squad. Well, I will be keeping my eyes out for vote on HR 3648. We'll probably try to post something on Twitter. I'll also post on Twitter once the Visa Bulletin drops, most likely tomorrow. I'm expecting it sometime in the mid-morning, so we'll be monitoring that very closely. But if you guys hear anything, please feel free to message me, drop in my DMs, let me know. Would love to hear from you. I wanted to just again thank our partners, Syndesis and Path to Canada, Mark Pavlovopoulos. Really appreciate their continued and ongoing support. Carl Balsmeyer at PERM-ads.com. And RF Kamani at Mob Squad. Just really appreciate all of their continued and ongoing support, and looking forward to what's in store for us going into 2023. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Join the H1B Guy Telegram channel. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Follow me on LinkedIn. Please. Would love to hear from you there. And check out the H1BGuy.com, where there is over 2 years of a library of content that has been posted by myself in these long form vlog formats that I do. So please check out the H1BGuy.com. For those of you who took time to join me here on this live stream, thank you so much. I really appreciate your support. I can't do this without you, and just very indebted to you and all of the support that you've given me here in 2022. Thank you so much. I'm Robert. I'm the H1B Guy, your global source for all things H1B.